Capito.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Wray, and thank you to all of your, those in the FBI. We thank them from the bottom of our hearts of everything that they do every day. And I want to thank Chairman Leahy for teeing me up for this, because when you said out there is in Clarksburg, West Virginia, where they run the background checks at on the NICS system. And one of the statistics, Senator Leahy said almost 20 million already this year, but we had the highest May ever of 3,222,105 background checks, which is an amazing. So I'm happy to hear, and I want to be as supportive as we possibly can be through this committee to help you with the resources that you need. So I'm going to ask a different question rather than tout what a great job they do out in Clarksburg, because we both know that. And we've heard about the rise in crime over the last 2 years, particularly this summer seems to be particularly troublesome. What do you correlate any of that with the rising number of firearm purchases? How do you all analyze that at the FBI, the rising number of background checks that are being performed in terms of purchases?
Well, I don't know that we've been able to
I mean, people buying
settle on
weapons
one
as a
specific
defensive.
factor, but
Yeah.
certainly there have been a number of factors that drive, I think, the spike in violent crime. So COVID had a huge impact. You're talking about everything from trial backlogs, early releases, unemployment, et cetera. We have more juveniles committing violent crime, and there's all kinds of challenges in our legal systems for dealing with them. I mentioned in response to, I think, Senator Graham's question, certain prosecution practices and decreased sentences.
Right.
I think that has an effect. The prevalence of firearms in the wrong hands is certainly an issue as well, especially gun trafficking across state lines and things like. These are all things that I think collectively contribute to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rise also is obviously if you're going to legally purchase and go through a background check, it probably is in response to a rising criminal element for a defense. I mean, more people are feeling defenseless, more people at home more, and feel like they're maybe making those purchases to protect them and their family. So I thank you for making sure those are getting safely into those hands. I want to talk about cyber attacks. I asked the same question to Secretary Blinken and Attorney General Garland about ransomware. It's particularly interesting to me because it's semi-new phenomenon, and it's every article you read, it's not really know how to handle it and what to do, and that it is a global issue as well. And so I'm interested to know if you're working with your global partners on how to address ransomware, and then you read from time to time what the different advice is. Pay the ransom, don't pay the ransom. How are you all addressing that? I mean, is that something that I don't know that you give advice, but you would, for a large breach like the Colonial Pipeline, certainly have to be involved with that. And how you're seeing ransomware. We know it's going to get worse. And so I suppose that's why the cyber part of your budget is going to be increased, and that would be the area that you would look at the ransomware issue. Am I correct in assuming that?
Certainly, the part of the cyber enhancement request, ransomware is a huge component of that. It's going to go to all the different kinds of cyber intrusions. Right. Where some nations, something like solar winds would also be the kind of thing that would be addressed through that enhancement. But ransomware, I think, has become particularly challenging because we've seen the total volume of money paid, I think, triple, over the last year or so. You're talking about higher and higher ransoms, more sophisticated attacks. We're talking about ransomware as a service, which the Colonial Pipeline case illustrated, where sophisticated developers of ransomware then basically outsource it to less sophisticated actors, which just expands the problem and the availability of the technique. And they're also now more and more engaging in a sort of a mix of both the locking up of the system and the exfiltration and leaking or extortion that way as well. As far as guidance to victims, our guidance is don't pay the ransom. But let me say this, I understand that it's a hard decision for a company or a municipal government or whatever it happens to be to make. And the one thing that I think is most important by far is that whether they pay or don't pay, they get in touch with us right away, early on, because when they do, there's all kinds of things that we can do. In the Colonial Pipeline case, for example, we were, as has been reported, able to essentially seize and confiscate some of the ransom, a lot of the ransom, and to hit the bad guys right where it hurts. In other cases, it's not all the time, but it does happen. Sometimes through other work we've done, we might have the decryption key and be able to help the company unlock their data without having to pay the ransom. Right. Best of both worlds. So there's a lot of things we can do. What we can't do is much if we're not coordinated with early. But our strategy has to be whole of government, working with the private sector, working with foreign partners, as you mentioned, because invariably these actors are overseas, going after the actors, going after their helpers, going after their infrastructure, going after their money. So it's a comprehensive type of approach.
Well, we want to be, again, as supportive as we can be because this is a growing problem. Thank you.
Thank you.